We want to talk about the learning environment for children's ministry. Whenever kids come into the classroom, we want them to be eager and excited about learning. But there are some things we can do to create that environment to make learning a joy for them, make it easy for them, to help them do their best in our particular setting. Sometimes what we'll do with teachers is pass out a selection of candy and just kind of pass it around the room and say, I care about you so much, and I thought about you, and I wanted to bring a treat for you, so I brought some of these candies, and they're just for you because I knew you liked them and that you'd want something, maybe even need something to help you keep attention during the class. So I'm going to pass this around, and I'm going to ask that you take one or two pieces, any one you want. It doesn't really make any difference. You can eat it now or save it for later, whatever you'd like. And so we start passing that around. And then while they're taking those candies, I'll be asking them things like, so do you like it? Was it good? Did you find something that you liked? What is it that you like best about that candy? Which candy do you wish we had put in that little container? Yeah, and so we'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll come back and start talking about 8 things that really make that learning environment good for the student. And they're really simple things, and we just did a lot of them right there in that little first activity. So the first one is an environment of love. That's when students come into the classroom and they know for sure that you care about them. When I was passing out the candy, the first thing I did was I said, I care about you, I thought about you, I wanted you to have something, and I was excited to express that love to those students. This is where we express value and acceptance of the child. We have personal attention. We spend time with them. So that's the first element that helps kids learn well. Scientists have discovered if kids come into a learning setting and they don't feel safe, if they don't feel loved and cared for, if they don't feel accepted, their brain is not ready to begin learning. So we can help that by expressing love in the classroom. Another thing we can do is have structure in the classroom. Have some order, some instructions. When I started passing that candy out, I said everyone can take one or two pieces. You can have any one you want, and you can have it now or later. So I kind of gave some boundaries, some instructions with that. This is really important for kids, that there is a sense of order in the classroom. They know the rules, they know what to expect, and there is a safety that comes in that environment where everything is understood and can be expected. Another thing is meaningful information. Now, when I passed out the candy, I didn't hand out rocks or microchips or something like that. I handed out things that I knew kids would like, that meant something to them. And so when we're teaching, we want to make sure that the information is meaningful information to them. If we go on and on about the dimensions of the tabernacle or the ark or Noah's Ark, and we go too much in detail, things they can't use in their everyday life that doesn't make sense to them. We talk about God's structure in the church, and we start going off on things that they really don't understand. Learning is not going to be as good as it could be. So we want to make sure that it's meaningful information, something they need to know that they're going to be able to use at home or at school or in their personal life. So meaningful information. We want to add to that variety. You notice that when I passed out the candy, there were lots of different kinds of candy in there because there are lots of different learning styles in your classroom. Kids are very different. Did all of you take the same candy? No, because we all have different interests and different tastes. So the same way in the classroom, we can't teach our learning style only. We can't just do what seems fun and good for me. We have to remember that those kids, the kids in the classroom, are all different. And so we have to have a lot of variety in the classroom. Keeps it interesting. It also meets different learning styles. The next thing is repetition. I noticed while some of you are eating the candy, you kept repeating the same motion, that lick, 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 or that suck, 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 or that chew, chew, chew. You were doing the same thing over and over. That's one of the ways that kids learn, is an environment where there is repetition. It becomes familiar. I heard that before, and so I remember it. And so as we're creating that learning environment, there is enough repetition that allows kids to learn easily. So remember that in your classroom. The next thing is dialogue. And you remember hearing me say, do you like it? What's the best part about it? What do you wish we had had in there? What candy do you like even better than this? So I began to dialogue or talk to you about the candies that were going around the room. Kids need to talk about what we're learning, and we need to listen and hear what they're saying to find out if they really understand what we're teaching, if it's getting through, how we can clarify or correct some misunderstanding, how we can add to or enhance what God is doing in them. So we have to dialogue. We can't just stand in the front and lecture. We have to be willing to engage our students and dialogue with them. Remember, we talked about the learning process, which is present information, where I'm doing all the talking and you're doing all the listening, and then discuss. And that's where we're talking together to make sure that you are really understanding it. And then the third thing is application. That's where the student gets to try it for themselves, to practice what we've been learning, to put it into action, to actually do it. Aren't you glad I just didn't show you the container of candy and talk about candy? Aren't you glad I didn't just show you a picture, but I actually let you participate and let you take some of that candy and try it for yourselves? The same way in a classroom, we need to be able to allow kids to practice what they're learning, to participate, to be hands-on. So if we're talking about prayer, we're going to have them pray. If we're talking about being kind or serving one another, we're going to practice kindness and serving in the classroom. We're going to give them homework assignments to go home and do what God's word says, so we're applying it. The last one is permission to be themselves, permission to be kids. Sometimes teachers get frustrated because the students in my classroom are just acting like kids. I mean, they're just goofy. They're just full of energy, and they're being their age. They're being themselves. And I noticed when I passed out the candy, some of you just played with it a bit and tossed it around, or hid it from your neighbor, or stuck it in your pocket, or you ate it right away, and that's okay. I was allowing the student to be themselves, to have a little bit of fun with it. So when we're doing all of these things in our classroom environment, it makes it really easy for kids to begin to learn and really learn what we're trying to teach them. If you notice, Jesus used all of these things as he taught, as he interacted with us. Obviously, he showed love. There's so many examples where Jesus walked up to someone and just his compassion. And it says, even from the bowels of his being, he was expressing love to the people he was with. You see structure. There are lots of times when Jesus would have a certain way that he wanted things done. When he sent the disciples out, he sent them 2 by 2, gave them instructions about what they could bring and what they shouldn't bring. When he fed the 5,000, he had them sit down in an orderly way in groups of hundreds, and he divided the fish and the bread in a certain way. So he used structure. He had meaningful information. He talked to his disciples about things that would really matter, about right worship of God. God. He talked about persecution that would come. He talked about their relationship with God. So he talked about things that were important. He even talked about taxes at one point because people care about that. So he was giving meaningful information. Variety. Just look at the ways that Jesus healed people. Was it always the same way? No, he was always showing all kinds of variety as he was teaching. He used lots of different object lessons. Sometimes he would just use something really common that was there, and other times he would speak in a parable. So he used lots of variety. Repetition. How many times did he talk to his disciples about prayer? Or how many times did he talk to them about his own arrest and death and resurrection? He said it over and over. To Peter, he said, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" So he was repeating to make a point. Dialogue. He would talk with them, ask them questions. Who do people say that I am? Yeah. Who do you say that I am? And so he was beginning to dialogue with them to see where they were, what they understood. Application. After they saw him do miracles and do teaching, he sent them out 2 by 2. He says, okay, time for you to go and do it yourself. Application. Permission to be themselves. I think that when Jesus let those little children come to him, and he said, you come here, and they came running into him and jumped on him, and he was letting them be themselves. When he let Peter step out into the water, he was letting Peter be himself. So Jesus used all of those things as an example for us, so that when we're teaching, when we have a group of kids that we are trying to disciple and train, we want to make sure that we create a learning environment that makes learning easy for kids. Let's try it.